Hello, this is Angelia, and you are listening to or watching the podcast, Why You Do What You Do. The podcast that talks about human development and psychology to maybe help you figure out a little bit more about why you do what you do. And last time we were talking about adolescents and peers, and we're going to take up on that. Oh, it's a hot day here. My allergies are acting up. Ugh. Bear with me. The influence of peers is strongest in early adolescence. It normally peaks at ages 12 to 13 and declines during middle and late adolescence as relationships with parents are renegotiated. So, like I say, starting in about middle school, oh my goodness, up until the late teen years is the strongest attachment that you have to your peers, and that's why usually between 7th and senior year, that's when you remember the most about your life with your peers and the fun you had and everything, because that's when you are most connected to them. And then as you become, adults, like they say, your relationship with your parents are renegotiated. If that's, something that happens and that they allow that, sometimes parents aren't like that. They don't want to, be involved in your life the way you might want them to be involved in your life, as equals, as, friends, if you will. And sometimes that never happens, and sometimes it doesn't happen until later on. But, that becomes a concern for the teens because they want to have some autonomy. They want to go out into the world, and they want to have the ability and freedom to do that. Attachment to peers in early adolescence does not forecast trouble unless the attachment is so strong that the young person is willing to give up obeying household rules, doing schoolwork, and developing his or her own talents in order to win peer approval and popularity. And there are kids like that. I knew kids like that when I was in school, that, whatever these people were into or wanted, that's the way they went. Whether they actually cared about it or not, they wanted to be seen as in or popular, and so they basically gave up their identity to become one of these people. I reconnected with maybe one or two of them later on at reunions and things, and they did have some problems with identity later on. So, I figured they would, and popularity. This is something that's a big deal between these ages. Everybody wants to be thought of as in and popular. My grandmother told me the story of my mother, who my grandmother said was jealous of me because I had friends calling, wanting to come over and things like that. And my grandmother witnessed my mom being kind of mean to me one day about it. And she said, she always treats you like that when your friends want to come over or talk or whatever. And I said, yeah. And she's like, well, I'm going to tell you a story. Come on out with me. And she took me out to the back swing. We were swinging. And she said, when your mom was in school, she wanted to be one of the popular girls really bad. She did everything they did, but they never accepted her. And I don't think she ever really got over that. And I think that she sees you as a popular girl, and so she's kind of taking that out on you. She's jealous of you. And of course, as a 13-year-old person, that blew my mind. Like, my mom? My mom is beautiful. She's got nice clothes and jewelry and things, and, why would she be jealous of me? But, a lot of kids want to be popular. And if you are popular, even if it's through no fault of your own, some people will pick on you. Some people will be jealous and hate on you just because. That's kind of sad, because especially if you don't want to be popular, if you're just somebody's people likes, because you're nice, or because of the way you look or whatever. I had a lot of people who liked the way I looked growing up. When I was younger, I was 36, 24, 36 at the age of 12. So I had a lot of people kind of chasing after me, but that's not what I wanted. That's certainly not what I wanted. And I had a lot of girls accuse me of things too that were not true. So, I learned at that age that there's going to be people who like you for one reason or another, and don't actually like you. They just want something from you, and that there are people who will hate on you and be jealous of you for no good reason, and say mean things and accuse you of things that aren't true just because they don't feel good about themselves, so they want to take that out on you, like the old saying, misery loves company. In socioeconomic studies, children are generally asked to name the classmates they like the most and those they like the least. Oh, excuse me here. Let's lay down on something. Such studies have identified 5 peer status groups. Popular, youngsters who receive many positive nominations. Rejected, those who receive many negative nominations. Neglected, those who receive few nominations or of either kind. Controversial, those who receive many positive and many negative nominations. And average, those who do not receive an unusual number of nominations of either kind. And so they did these studies, and this is what they come up with. Popular, rejected, neglected, controversial, and average. So I think all of us kind of fell in there somewhere during our school years. A study of 1903 preteens and teenagers, that's 1,903, aged 10 to 16, in northern Greece, used this technique along with teachers' ratings and self-ratings. The young people also were asked to name 2 classmates who best fit certain behavior descriptions. For example, quarrels often with other students, liked by everybody and helps everybody, or gets into trouble with the teacher. By combining and comparing evaluations, the researchers filled out a portion of rejected, neglected, and controversial students. So, this was a study they did, and, I guess they were looking into personality types probably to decide, where these people fell in the personality types to kind of understand what leads a person to being popular or being rejected. As in U.S. studies, the rejected group had the greater adjustment problems. Because, of course, if you're rejected by your peers, that's going to hurt your feelings. You're not going to have good self-esteem or self-worth because you think there must be something wrong with you because people are rejecting you. And it's actually a social dynamic, so it's probably not that there is anything wrong with you. They also had academic difficulties and low achievement test scores, and that's probably because of the low self-esteem, low self-worth. They didn't care because they didn't think they were worthy of anything, so why bother to try and achieve? Rejected boys, particularly younger ones, tended to be aggressive and antisocial. Rejected girls and older rejected boys were more likely to be shy, isolated, and unhappy, and to have a negative self-image. So, oh my goodness, excuse me here, there's a little fly on my leg, and that's not cool. It's hot and the things are coming in, nasty things. So, of course, if you have no self-worth, and you're probably angry at the world, you're going to be more aggressive. And younger boys don't have a lot of impulse control, and they act out. And now the girls and the older guys, they might realize, well, I'm not going to bother interacting with these people because they don't like me anyway, so they will become withdrawn and shy. So, there's no surprise in that, honestly. The neglected group, which by high school age included more boys than girls, were less pro-social and had more learning difficulties than average, which contributed to a poor self-image. So, if you're already feeling like nobody likes you or whatever, you're more likely to not bother with school. You won't get involved in things. Your grades are probably going to suffer. So it's just not a good deal. That's why I told my kids, be a good friend. If you see a kid sitting alone, go sit with them, talk to them. You might make a new friend. They might be a really nice person. You don't know. The transitions from elementary to junior high school and from junior high to high school seem to be particularly hard for both the rejected and neglected groups, because of course it is. If you're being rejected or nobody cares about you, pays you any attention, you're not going to fit in. You're not going to feel like you fit in. And navigating the school life is going to be harder than you, and there's probably going to be some bullies who pick on you because this is where you fall in the social standing. The controversial group were viewed one way by teachers and another way by peers. And we all know, that's probably because of behavior. These controversial ones are usually the class clowns and, people who kind of are, rebels, and the kids might think that's cool. But the teachers probably don't think that's very cool because you're disturbing the class. Perhaps because this group tended to do well in school, teachers did not see them as having behavior problems. So usually these controversial students aren't necessarily a behavioral problem, but they probably have a lot of personality. Those were the controversial kids when I was in school. They have a lot of personality. So, my grandma called that being a character. So, you might cause a little disturbance that maybe, the kids like, but the teachers not so much. Peers, on the other hand, saw the boys as aggressive and antisocial, but also as leaders. Perhaps because peers expect and accept aggression in boys. And that's something that as parents we should work on changing that. Aggression is not okay in boys or girls. And when we see it, we should nip that in the bud. When I caught my boys being aggressive, they had to stop and take time out. And if they were, actively fighting, then they stopped fighting and they stood in front of me hugging each other for however long, the oldest one was. And after a time or two of that, they quit. So, you need to have some logical consequences, If they're hating on each other, you're going to make them love on each other. And the behaviors will change. Particularly in elementary school, peers often rated the girls in this category as snobbish and arrogant, perhaps reflecting girls' tendency to form cliques at this age. So, I was told that in middle school, in 8th grade, I asked some mean girls who were picking on me and told me, I thought it was too good for them, a snob, whatever. And that was not true. I had actually been friends with one of these girls, but she thought I was trying to steal her boyfriend, which I was not. The dude was okay, not my type, had a monobrow, not my type, clearly her type, so I was just not into the guy. But in a class, in gym class, we had to pair up and play basketball, and she saw me playing ball with him and assumed I was trying to steal her man at the age of 13. So they picked on me for the whole rest of the year and said mean things about me for no reason. And this can be a thing, especially girls can be mean to each other. So as parents, when you hear that meanness coming from somewhere, you need to have a discussion with them about that, because that's not okay. Anytime I heard stuff like that, I'd be like, why are you saying that? That's mean. Well, because blah, blah, blah. So, why do you care? Are you jealous of them? Well, no. Well, sure sounds like maybe you think that you should be involved with them and they're not letting you. Well, no, I don't care about them. So, as a parent, if you hear meanness, stop it. Because that'll only spill into the adult life, and that's going to give them problems in their relationships. Because nobody likes to be in a relationship with a mean person. Except other mean people, and then you're both miserable and blah, there's your life. By high school, these girls were better liked than before, and also were seen as leaders. And that's true. Some of the girls that, people thought were bossy boots in the middle school actually became like captains of, the dance team or cheerleading or whatever. when we got to high school. So, things change. And as children mature, like I said, this little fly here keeps landing on my leg, so he's itching me. So as kids mature, that kind of behavior supposed to stop, and sometimes it does. And like I said, as a parent, if you hear it, nip in the bud, because that's going to cause them problems later on in life. Friendships are fundamentally different from family relationships, in that you kind of have to be with your family. But your friends, you get to choose. So, it's a better deal for you. They are more egalitarian than relationships with parents or siblings, because you allow your friends some wiggle room. If you're in the house and the brother or sister's bugging you, that's going to irritate you, and you're going to be like, Mom, he's touching me, and, that becomes a whole different thing. Friendships are based on choice and commitment, because like I say, you choose your friends, and if they are your friend, you make a commitment to them. I mean, if you think back in school, you think about how, if anybody messed with your friend, you'd be upset with that, or if there was a problem with your friend, you want to help them out. So, we are committed to our friends more so than we even are to our family. By the same token, they are more unstable than family relationships, because you can stop being friends with somebody. They might tick you off, or do something you find just totally objectionable, so you're like, I'm not their friend anymore. Whereas your family, you can't walk away that easy until you're grown. So, awareness of the distinctive character of friendships and of what it takes to maintain them emerges in adolescence, because you start figuring out who you are, and that's what you're going to like in other people and accept in other people, and that helps you to build relationships, because even though opposites attract, likenesses maintain a relationship. So this is something that kids are learning at this age. Adolescents quarrel less angrily and resolve conflicts more equitably with friends than with family members, or sometimes just drop the issue, perhaps because they realize that too much conflict could cost them a friendship. And there are people who don't realize this, and they're always about drama and conflict, and then they have problems in their relationships, and it's like they wonder why, and it's like, maybe all that drama and conflict. You're supposed to learn, to kind of be a peacekeeper in relationships. Adolescents, like younger children, tend to choose friends who are like them, and friends influence each other to become even more alike. Friends are not necessarily of the same race or ethnicity. African American teens are more likely than European Americans and Asian Americans to stick together. And that is a cultural thing, and that's because, there are unfortunately still a lot of prejudice. African American adults who will tell you, I had a friend who was African American, and she told me that her mother told her that all white people were alike and they didn't like black people. So I thought that was a shame, because I was like, no, that is not true, and she goes, I didn't think it was, but that's what she said. So that's a shame. Friends do tend to have similar academic attitudes and performance, and especially similar levels of drug use, and to have similar status within the peer group. So if your kid is hanging out with somebody who's doing drugs, it's more likely that they're going to be doing drugs. So you need to get to know the kids' friends. Two of mine had some friends I objected to because of, you could tell they were doing some things. You could just tell because they smelled funny, and the eyes were all glassy and stuff. So I was like, I'm not okay with that. I don't want you doing that. You're my kid and I care about you, and I don't want that future for you. So, you got to know what's going on in your kids' lives. Since many characteristics that make children or adolescents attractive or unattractive to peers are generally influenced, It's not surprising that genes seem to play a part in choice of friends and may help explain why they tend to have similar qualities. Because times are even different. Like in my Father's Day coming up, crew cuts and a shirt with a pocket in it so you could put like your cigs or your wallet or whatever in it was cool. In my day, if we had a kid with a crew cut and a little pocket, shirt with like maybe a pocket protector or something like that, we would have not thought that cool. And nowadays, probably people would not think that's cool. So, times dictate what's in, that generation. A certain look could be considered, cool one decade and not the next. So, your genetics dictate how you look, and what you like. So, in that regard, if you don't look like what's popular and you don't like what's popular, then you're not going to be popular. And so, that's just common sense right there. In one study, genetic factors influenced approximately half the variance in siblings' choice of college-oriented or non-college-oriented peers. The choice of antisocial peers, by contrast, was affected mainly by environmental factors. So, again, if you're in a low socioeconomic status neighborhood, and there's a lot of pessimism and negativity, chances are you might end up with some friends who are pessimistic and negative. That's just, again, common sense. The intensity and importance of friendships, as well as the time spent with friends, are probably greater in adolescence than at any other time in the lifespan. Because remember, like I said, between those ages, 12 and 18, that's when you bond the most with your peers. So those are the times that we remember the most. And that, if we had a good teenage years, we like the most. If you had a bad one, maybe not. You kind of forget about that. I know people who say they don't even really remember anything about high school. It's because they weren't popular, they weren't having fun, they weren't involved in anything, they were, neglected or rejected. And so their teenage years were not, see that little fly, see him, dirty. I get away in the name of Jesus. But, so it's all perspective once again. If high school was good to you, you liked it. If it wasn't, you didn't. So, friendships become more reciprocal, meaning you are, with your friends, you give and take, and, you do nice things for each other in turn, and, it's practice for relationships as an adult. And that's how it should be. I've met some really selfish, immature people in relationships. And if you're a parent and your child is behaving like a selfish, spoiled brat, and wanting to have the best of the relationship, and it's, a one-sided relationship, you might want to have a word with them and say, that's not cool that you said this to so-and-so. That's not cool that, you asked them to go above and beyond, but yet you're not even willing to do this, that, or the other thing for them. That's not really fair, and it's going to hurt their feelings, of course, but you're teaching them that relationships are give and take, that it's not all about them. It shouldn't be a selfish one-person relationship, one-sided. There's supposed to be, two people in a relationship. Early adolescents begin to rely more on friends than on parents for intimacy and support, and they share confidences more than younger friends. So, they start to rely on the friends versus going to mom or dad, because they realize the friends are the same age, same things are going on in their life, and that's more of a comfort to them than going to adults who might be give them a little lecture or whatever. So, again, that just makes sense. A stress on intimacy, loyalty, and sharing marks the transition to adult-like friendships. Yeah. So, the more reciprocal the relationship, the more intimate the relationship, the more that it's like an adult relationship. And that's something that in these years they're supposed to be learning. And like I said, since it's the parents, teachers, etc., job to teach, if there are problems with relationships that you notice, you should step in and help them navigate that. Like I said, you can't do stuff for them, but you can teach them, and hopefully they'll listen and they'll come out a better person. Intimacy with same-sex friends increases during early to mid-adolescence, after which typically declines as intimacy with the other sex grows. So as you know, the middle school girls are all about each other. My best friend. They're all fighting over who's your best friend. I remember that. That's my best friend. It's like, I want to be your best friend. It's like, but that's just the thing that goes on. And then as you get into high school, about halfway through, it's not so much about the girl or guy friends anymore. It becomes about the sex that you're attracted to. And that's when the whole dynamic changes. The increased intimacy of adolescent friendships reflects cognitive as well as emotional development, because they're starting to learn, their minds are growing, and they're starting to realize more things. And they're becoming more emotionally mature, so they're okay with sharing with others, and doing something nice for other people. At least they should be. Like I said, if you notice selfish Sally happening, you need to step in and say, hey, you know what? Or selfish Steve. Adolescents are now better able to express their private thoughts and feelings, because they now have the verbiage. When they're a kid, they're just like, and they're mad, and they're hitting the door or whatever. They don't have the verbiage to say how they feel. But now at this age, they do. So they can express their innermost emotions. And that's a good thing. And you should always. In a healthy, positive, constructive way. They also can more readily consider another person's point of view, and so it is easier for them to understand a friend's thoughts and feelings. So they can put themselves in another person's shoes and see, well, maybe I would feel like that too. And they can think that other people think different, that everybody's different and people think different, and people feel different about different things. And I remember a girl that kind of freaked me out because she was so anxious about everything, and I was just like, whoa. But then I started hearing some things about, she was young when her mother passed away. The father was not super attentive and involved. So I started to understand, well, this is why, she's really anxious, because she never knows what's coming next, and she never knows if she's going to be equipped to handle whatever's coming next. So, as a teenager, you start to realize these things and, be able to be in a reciprocal relationship with people. Increased intimacy also reflects early adolescents' concern with getting to know themselves. Because as you get to know yourself, and you have a friend and you talk to friends, and friends can be, a soundboard, and you can bounce ideas off them and, get a better feel of what you like and dislike and who you are really as a person. Confiding in a friend helps young people explore their own feelings, define their identity, and validate their self-worth. Because, you start to get a feel for who you are and what you want out of life and what you don't want out of life. And, if you have a good friend, they are probably giving you some positive reinforcement. I had some friends that I realized later on gave me no positive reinforcement. All they ever gave me was negative reinforcement, and because, I had experienced that in my life, I accepted that in my life, and then one day I'm like, why am I friends with this person? And so I'm not going to be anymore. Because all they've given me is, their bad mouth, and, I was always nice to them, so I don't even know. But we learn as we grow. Friendship provides a safe place to venture opinions, admit weaknesses, and get help with problems. because you learn that everybody has an opinion, and your opinion is based on your life experience and your perspective and your outlook on things. And everybody's is different. And we all have weaknesses. And supposedly you can trust that with a friend. I had thought I made a friend at a workplace, and I told her some personal stuff, and then the next day I come to work and like everybody's talking to me about this, and I'm like, what? And so I go to her, I was like, why would you do that? I wouldn't do that to you. And she's like, well, you didn't tell me it was a secret. And it's like, oh, okay, I see you now. we are not going to be friends. And you can get help with problems, because sometimes, as a teenager, you're afraid your parents will give you a lecture or whatever, or you get in trouble. So you talk to your peers about things. They might have a more practical or, better solution that you're looking for, versus, where you're going to give you a lecture or punish you, and that's like not going to help the situation. You need, to fix this situation. So, well, that's where I'm going to leave you today. And I hope this has helped you figure out maybe a little bit more about why you do what you do. Please like and share this educational program. If you want to help me out, subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you want to help me out even more, go to my Patreon page and become a patron. That's all for now. Until next time.